All right, back to our NHL Draft rankings. Coming in at number 9, the youngest player in university college hockey in the States. It's Canadian Matthew Wood.
Yep, Matthew Wood. This guy knows one thing, Ross, and it's how to put up big numbers. You mentioned that he was the youngest player playing in college and university in the States, and he put up 34 points in 35 games. But before that, he was in the BCHL and with the Victoria Grizzlies as a 16-year-old, and he put up big numbers there too. In 46 games, 45 goals, 40 assists, good for 85 points in 46 games. So this kid is excelling very quickly, and he's dominating even in age groups above him and amongst his peers. This kid knows how to put the puck in the back of the net.
He certainly does. He's 6'4", 193 pounds, an imposing figure. He put up the numbers you mentioned at the University of Connecticut, where he only had 4 penalty minutes as well. You see 6'4", you see this imposing figure. You're like, oh man, he's probably pretty physical. Not the case. He's a very offensive-minded player, and the kind of player that you put on a power play and he is going to score in every different way. It felt like he's not in that one spot. All the highlights I'm watching, he's moving down. He's either at the bottom of the left circle for that one-timer, or he's curl and dragging it. He really likes bringing the puck into his feet and firing off shots like that. But he's got underrated playmaking tools as well. A lot of primary assists from what I saw, and a kind of guy who throughout the year really developed. And Elite Prospects noted that. I know they have him 16th, so they're still the lowest on him out of any of our scouting entities that have ranked him. But for me, it's kind of what could be next for Matthew Wood that can really get you excited. The skating is always going to seemingly be the issue, and that's why there's a discussion coming up about that. But before we get to it, let's look at the rankings. Chris Peters is the highest on him at 7th on his list. Scott Wheeler has him at 10th. Craig Button, 11th. Bob McKenzie, 12th. Corey Pronman, 14th. And Elite Prospect, 16th. Pilsy, if we do this Olympic style and take out the top and worst score, this guy might have the smallest range of where we're going to see him go. He's going to go between 10 and 15.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate, Ross. Although, I mean, who knows what happens on draft day? But I would say that's a good range for Matthew Wood. And the thing about him is you can't talk about him without talking about that shot. Like, this kid is an elite goal scorer. He's got a lethal shot and great release, and he uses that 6'4", 193-pound frame to get to those high scoring areas with ease. Now, you mentioned he's not a very physical player, and I would agree with that. Like, you're not looking at Matthew Wood and being like, this is a power forward. Like, this kid is going to play physical. He's going to bang bodies. He's going to be, tough to play against in that aspect. He more uses his size to get to those areas and to propel power into his shot. And you heard me mention all the goals. Like, this kid uses that power to get those goals. So it's going to be interesting to see with Matthew Wood, though, Ross, because I feel like he's someone that has developed a very good skill at a young age, his shot, and he's dominated using that. But what happens when you get to the pro levels? And yeah, you can have a huge shot, but if you can't skate, if you can't play defense properly, if you're not able to be physical, you're going to get kind of lost in things in the pro level up against men that have more experience and are smarter, stronger, faster, etc. So I think Matthew Wood is a very good prospect now, but how does he project in the pros? I think there might be some concern there.
One of the biggest questions is he a centerman or is he a winger at the top level?
I would put him on the wing just because he's not the strongest skater. He's not, he's not touted for his defensive abilities. And if he's on the wing, he can put himself in positions to be open for a big shot, and he just needs a setup, man.
I completely agree with that. I don't think we see him play center another moment once he turns pro. But of course, he'll go back to the University of Connecticut. He helped them have their most successful season in years. But he's a Nanaimo.
There you go.
Yeah, easy for me to say. But he's a guy who's still growing into his body. And again, playing junior A before this in Canada, we see a lot of the Canadians take this route or even go play USHL. And it's quite the leap to go from that into an NCAA environment. So I think it's smart of him that he's able to go do that at such a young age. And it's going to be a lot of skating. Now, one of the scouts that Elite Prospects talked to, an NHL scout, says, could he be a Mark Stone type player? Because the smarts are there, the skills there. But again, the question with Mark Stone is his skating looks awful. How can he do it? I think Mark Stone has a little bit more defensive awareness, always
There
has,
it is.
right? But I mean, we're kind of asking both our questions here at once, although we're both agreeing he should be a winger.
Yep.
Is he too one-dimensional to be a top 6 forward at the NHL level?
I mean, it's so early to tell. Like we mentioned, he's the youngest player in college. This is a young kid with a lot of development ahead of him. So I don't want to put any bold proclamations on him in that sense. But what I will say, Ross, is the one player that came to mind after watching video of Matthew Wood, after reading about him, after doing all my compiled research, the one player that came to mind for me, Filip Zadina. I really feel like this is a Filip Zadina type prospect where everybody is so enamored with how he's able to score with ease at the junior competition levels. And you just think, well, and I mean, I hand up, I was a Filip Zadina guy. I thought a guy that can score like this in junior, he's got to have success in the NHL. And it hasn't worked out that way. He hasn't been able to round out his game and add more skills to his tool bag. And Ross, Zadina is barely an NHLer. Like, he's not even dominating the AHL. So this is where I have some concerns about Matthew Wood, that maybe he doesn't end up rounding out his game and he just ends up being a slower, lethal shot that can't find his spot in a lineup night in, night out.
He's probably lower than number 9 on my list, I'd say.
Yep, agreed. And I got him at 3.5 stars here just because I love the shot. I love the skill. I know he can score goals, but there's so much more to a successful pro hockey player moving forward.
And Chris Peter says Wood is unlikely to be a real driver on his line, which limits some of his value, but his goal scoring size and download play are all higher end traits. While the EP Draft Guide said Wood's game took a significant step forward in time for the new year, showing a more projectable, compelling complement of skills that just might allow him to generate offense at the next level in a sustainable fashion. So that's where you have to remember when these kids are 17, 18, is that there's so much room left in their development. You can say he's a bad skater now, but who's to say that can't take a step forward this offseason? And all of a sudden, you know that the other skills are already there. Imagine if this guy's able to start creating off the rush more. All of a sudden, he's got the down low play, he's got the shot, he's got the passing. And then now you're looking at an all-around player. So I just think that it's one where there's a lot of risk if you're taking him in a top 10 role, because I think there's other guys who have a little bit more assurance that they can project to an NHL talent. But it's going to be really interesting to see where Matthew Wood ends up in the 2023 NHL Draft. For more on our NHL Draft coverage, head to the YouTube channel on Locked On Senators and check out all of our draft profiles.